Hello and welcome again to another Chupacomics video concerning on how to make comics and things that will make your creative projects better. I'm sitting here outside on this beautiful fall afternoon in Northern California, perhaps a few miles, a dozen or so miles outside of Santa Cruz, the city of the beach. It's very peaceful, very quiet out here in my little cottage, and I'm enjoying my weekend. Basically, the subject I want to tackle right now is kind of building on what I said last week about basically building up good habits and reaching your goals. Here we're going to talk more about the structure of a well-told story, and that would include comics, especially your comic book. And it sounds extremely elementary and basic, but you'll be surprised at how many people miss this. It really is something where your creative project needs to be able to be reduced to a timeline structure that makes sense to the audience and makes the audience participate in your story. And by doing so, they have a feeling like they've actually entered and walked into your creative world. And I've listened to a few people talk about film theory and story structure. I've read a few books, but to me it kind of boils down to like 4 essential elements that you could capitalize with BMOC. And that would be beginning, middle, obstacle, conclusion. When you think about it, all stories seem to have that structure in place, that they have that, that once upon a time they begin and they start to get into the describing the world of the character, describing the character, that what you call the middle part perhaps. And then the obstacle is, the character's established to go from here to there, and there's something, someone, some way that the world is structured perhaps is an obstacle, and now the character has to find a way to continue to try and reach what they want on the other side of that obstacle. And then the conclusion would be like the aftermath of what happens when the character gets involved with that. An example would be my comic book, Mayfield 8. Mayfield 8 is a 1970s crime, gritty, kind of grindhouse, action-packed, adult-level story concerning a young fry cook who, on his birthday, is given an offer by a friend to have all this money and to experience a few good times in a Mexican bar down below across the border. And all he has to do for his friend is to stand watch while his friend conducts this drug deal in this back room somewhere. So there's his opportunity to have a great time. Very, very little work perhaps, and the way is paved smooth for him to go out and do just that. And they both ride motorcycles. They're going to meet up at a certain place and discuss it a little further at a roadside restaurant, Mexican restaurant. On his way, my character gets in a little bit of a scrape with the biker gang on the road as well, on their motorcycles. The lead biker just tosses an empty beer can at him. He retaliates by finding a half-used can of spray paint on the side of the road, catches up to the guy, spray paints him in the face, and then takes off. Because he knows these roads, he knows the trails off of the road really well in this particular area. So he gets away free. Now, that would be maybe like the beginning and the middle, but the obstacle happens at the very end, where yes, he meets up with his friend at the Mexican restaurant. They discuss what their next plan, the next place they have to go, And as it so happens, they're not really going anywhere. It's just simply across the street from the restaurant. There's this big biker bar, the Rat Hole. And sure enough, that very same biker gang is showing up there, and the leader's got the spray paint on his face. I'm gonna kill that motherfucker, right? And that's the end of issue 1. So that clearly would be like the obstacle. He's not only bound by a promise of standing watch while his friend goes right into that biker bar and does his deal in the back room there, but once anybody sees him and recognizes him from earlier that day of spray painting their leader in the face, he's basically going to get his ass kicked and he's going to be stomped into the ground. So that's the setup with Mayfield 8 Part 1. Another example, I just like 2 weekends ago I finished watching Sergio Leone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and this is possibly the best of the 3 spaghetti westerns, Dollars trilogy. You have a multiple set of characters that all tell the story, the beginning, the middle, and the obstacle and the conclusion. You could say that there's the setup with the Mexican bandit Tuco, who struck a deal with Blondie, portrayed by Clint Eastwood. Blondie's a sharpshooter with a rifle, and the scam is that Blondie pretends like he's turning Tuco in for a reward. Tuco instantly gets tried and sentenced to hang, and without leaving town, Blondie hides somewhere in a spot with a rifle, and just as they're going to hang Tuco, Blondie shoots the rope and cuts it in half and then scoops him up and takes him away so that they can do that very same thing in the next town. And the movie progresses where Blondie tells Tuco, we've kind of reached our limit now. I don't think I'm gonna make any more money off of you, so I'm gonna set you free. But he sets him free by keeping all the money they made on the last deal and and basically double crossing him. Okay, so that would be, you could say that's the obstacle there, where Tuco now he's basically shit out of luck. He's in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and he's full of anger and spite, and now he's truly, not Blondie's friend. He's going to come back and get him. In the middle of all this, there's Angel Eyes, who hears about the Confederate Army. It's set in the Civil War. The Confederate Army had some guys who were going to embezzle all the gold payments to the soldiers and hide them somewhere, but and they succeeded in hiding the money, but they got ambushed by Union soldiers and nearly died in the attack, and they're in a wagon that was pulled away by horses, a runaway wagon with dead or nearly dead soldiers in the back of it. And that's where later, later down in the movie, that's where Tuco and Blondie kind of stumble across that, in the middle of Tuco trying to kill Blondie by basically dehydrating him to death in the middle of the desert. He gets revenge on him. So the movie is a series of layers of things like that, where you have the story progressing from a beginning to a middle, and then an obstacle, and then a conclusion, which in turn becomes another beginning, middle, and an obstacle. So it boils down to, characters who very clearly need to get from A to B, but they can't because there's somebody trying to kill them, or they can't get the money yet. The money belongs to, or in the case of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the obstacle is at the very, very end of the movie. The money is buried at a grave site Tuco knew which gravesite it was, and through torture also Angel Eyes knows, but Blondie is the only one that knows, to Clint Eastwood's character, he's the only one that knows which gravesite in the graveyard that it's buried, that the actual money is buried at. So the movie has a very interesting kind of three-way gun battle instead of the typical like high noon western where it's the good and the white hat and the black hat going at it down the main street to have a shootout. You have a three-way here. And so yeah, it was a very interesting way of setting up the ending of that movie. Another example I think would be kind of like Better Call Saul. It would be the spin-off to Breaking Bad, and I choose that one because it's a little more simplified. The beginning on that one was I believe it was Saul Goodman himself being scammed by two skateboarding guys that do a swoop and swat. It's like they pretend like his car hit the guy and now they're going to sue him because his leg is broken. And Jimmy McGill is very, very well versed in all kinds of scams. In fact, he used to do this thing, and that's how he's teaching these guys, hey, I'm not buying it for 1 minute. In fact, he has the knowledge of these people who embezzled money from the city of Albuquerque, and if he gets them involved in this a fake accident using these two skateboarding guys, then he can get them to fork over all this money that they have. Okay, so that's the deal. But that goes wrong because the two skateboarding guys mistakenly performed their accidental being hit and run by not the people that James McGill was targeting, but the aunt to a very vicious, foul drug dealer who ironically is also named Tuco. I'm sure it's a homage to Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And he's a character from Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul's told in a few years before the events of Breaking Bad. And that's when you have this kind of aha moment. But now it's a huge, huge obstacle because they were just simply trying to scare a husband and wife pair of embezzlers out of some of their money by making this fake accident. Instead, they've scared half to death this frail old Spanish-speaking aunt who has a nephew who's very, very vicious and violent and well-connected and part of the drug culture. And that's where he meets James McGill. He kidnaps him and the two skateboarding guys, takes them out to the desert, and he's just pretty much going to off all three. And James McGill, who later on will become named Saul as the series progresses, he offers a solution to Tuco that's going to be more of a message sent out to people, because 3 dead bodies aren't going to send anything. He needs to put fear in these two guys, and so he uses his lawyer skills to argue down to just simply breaking one leg on each guy rather than just slitting their throats or a bullet in the head. It's very, very violent and very, very interesting that it kind of reveals Jimmy's character thinking quick, thinking on his feet, trying to change a situation from absolutely terrible to possibly livable, to possibly get out of this situation. And it's an example of really, really good writing. Now, the show that chronologically follows Better Call Saul but came before it, Breaking Bad, I'm not going to get into deep depths about that, but you could just say like the very first episode, the structure where a mild-mannered high school chemistry teacher who has very, very finely honed scientific skills. He knows chemistry like the best experts that there are. He finds out that he's got cancer and he's struggling, trying to make ends meet, doesn't make much money as a teacher, works at a car wash on the side, and he bumps into a former student of his who flunked out, who's selling crystal meth. And that's when the light bulb goes off in his head. These guys make huge amounts of money off of creating something out of chemicals. I know chemicals really well. Why don't I team up with this guy? And just really quick, just a month or two, I'll stockpile enough money where I can pay for my chemo treatment, and I won't put my family into bankruptcy. So that's really like a good beginning and middle. Then the obstacle, of course, would be you don't just simply manufacture huge amounts of drugs and just sell them on the street. That there's a distribution pattern going. There's other people who also sell drugs illegally who won't like the idea of somebody muscling in on their territory, so they have to somehow interact with these guys. So the three examples plus my comic book, where BMOC, you have the beginning, middle, obstacle, and then conclusion, that would really make your comic book a better comic book. And to tack on just at the end there, the one little key ingredient that I always like to include when I write a story is that you have characters that want something, and maybe later on they get that thing, okay? But by getting that thing, another character is now out of whack, a little bit out of balance. You know, it's kind of like, what would be a good example of that? Like The Godfather, for example. The very beginning of the movie, Victor Sollozzo wants to be able to distribute heroin in the United States as a new and upcoming drug in the late 1940s, and he has trouble with all of his lieutenants and second in commands getting arrested left and right, and they need to get out of jail quickly so they can keep operations going. And Vito Corleone is known to be friends with lots of judges, even some senators. He's a powerful man in New York. He can pull some strings and help him. And Vito says no, because if these people found out I was helping out drug dealers or I was associated with you guys, they wouldn't help me. They would turn their backs on me, because they don't see drugs as the same way as they see gambling and prostitution, which are things that I promote secretly on the side. So in The Godfather, initially, Vito Corleone, he's balanced, he's even. He just said no, okay? He didn't get in trouble. He didn't stick his head out, didn't stick his nose into the guy's business. But then Sollozzo, he's uneven, right? He doesn't have the protection of the police and the judges. So he tries to kill the Godfather and assumes that he succeeded, and he kidnaps the Godfather's lawyer and tells him to go send a message to the next person in charge, that would be Godfather's son, Sonny Corleone, that will make the peace, but you just gotta, bring him over to our side. He'll understand once he gets over the anger of losing his father. But while Sollozzo thinks that everything's even Steven now, he's really made things very uneven, where not only Sonny, but Michael as well are in on the idea of murdering Sollozzo. So again, I'm not going to get into detail about The Godfather. Everybody's seen that movie 100 times, but it's an example, before I finish this video, of the obstacle making things uneven. So when you write your comic book story, let some characters get what they want, but in the process, make sure that creates another character being dissatisfied, not getting what they want, or having to wait too long, or whatever you can think of. And this is the way that you can create drama, tension, excitement, get your audience to turn the pages and want to know what else is happening, what's coming up next. And it makes your story that much more powerful. Thank you for watching this. Please feel free to go to my main website. That's www.timsnotebook.com. There you can click the tabs to go to my running 3 times a week comic strip set in the 1980s in Dorchester, Massachusetts, Dorchester Days on Patreon. There's also a link to my store site on Shopify. And if you buy anything on the store site until December 1st, in the discount code box, you type in the word Chupa, CHUPA, as in Chupacomics, and you'll automatically get a 10% discount off of anything. Again, that is lasting until December 1st, 2025. Keep working on your comics, and I would like to hear in the comments how anybody out there who's making something, how they apply BMOC, beginning, middle, obstacle, conclusion, in their stories. Thank you very much. Have a great day.